Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjano Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjano Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Dava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudara Sri Mad His Divine Grace Bhai Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudara Sri Mad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Sankirtan Jaga ki jai, Priyabhadanga book distribution ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Go Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, CC Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Mastaya Valleshwari Bhati Varantas Gauravani Varachari Nivishesha Shanyavari Pasyadhyadesha. So can I bother anyone for a book and the verse? Because I think the verse has been written. Sixth canto is not one of the cantos I've memorized, nor any of the other 11. So I do need a book. Om Agyan Dibarandasya Giranjana Salakaya Chakshuranminidam Dena Taismai Siddhi Gurave Namah. Yeah, it's verse 1, 2. Okay.
Second verse of the canto.
Om Agyan Dibarandasya Giranjana Salakaya Chakshuranminidam Dena Taismai Siddhi Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthavidamena Bhutale Suayam Rupa. This is very interesting. The cover is upside down. Does anyone know how to remedy this? Does anyone have a college education?
Yeah, you got the upside down?
Yeah, you just kind of cut the thing off and put it back on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the material world. It's inside out and upside down. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pravritti Lakshanas Chaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune Yo Sav Alina Prakritir Guna Sarga Puna Puna Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune Yo Savalina Prakritir Guna Sarga Puna Punaha Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune So Savalina Prakritir Guna Sarga Puna Punaha Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune So Savalina Prakritir Guna Sarga Puna Punaha. You like to chant? Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune So Savalina Prakritir Gunasaga Puna Puna Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune Gusavalina Prakritir Gunasaga Puna Puna Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune So Savalina Prakritir Gunasarga Puna Puna. Anyone else?
Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva
Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva
Traigunya Vishayo Mune
Traigunya Vishayo Mune
Jo Savalina Prakritir
So Savalina Prakritir
Guna Sarga Puna Punaha
Guna Sarga Puna Punaha Pravritti Lakshanaschaiva Traigunya Vishayo Mune Sosavalina prakater gunasarga puna punaha. Word for word, pravritti, by inclination. Lakshanaha, symptomized. Cha, also. Eva, indeed. Trigunya, the three modes of nature. Vishayaha, possessing as objectives. Mune, O great sage. Yaha, which. Asau, that. Alina prakatehe, of one who is not freed from the clutches of Maya. Gunasargaha, in which there is a creation of material bodies. Puna punaha, again and again. Translation. O great sage Shukadeva Goswami, unless the living entity is freed from the infection of the material modes of nature, he receives different types of bodies in which to enjoy or suffer. And according to the body, he is understood to have various inclinations. By following these inclinations, he traverses the path called Pravritti Marg, by which one may be elevated to the heavenly planets as you have described in the third canto. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As Lord Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 25th verse, Yanti deva vrata devan pratin yantim pratim bataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti mad yajino pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. Unquote. Because of the influence of the various modes of nature, the living entities have various tendencies or propensities, and therefore they are qualified to achieve various destinations. As long as one is materially attached, he wants to be elevated to the heavenly planets because of his attraction to the material world. The Supreme Lord of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead declares, however, those who worship me come to me. If one has no information about the Supreme Lord and his abode, one tries to be elevated only to a higher material position. But when one concludes that in this material world there is nothing but repeated birth and death, he tries to return home back to Godhead. If one attains that destination, he need never return to this material world. Yad gatvā nivartante dhāma paramaṁ. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 19:151, Brahmananda Brahmito Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Latta Bij. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. All living entities are rotating throughout the universe, sometimes going up to the heavenly planetary systems and sometimes going down to the lower planets. This is the material disease which is known as Pravritti Marga. When one becomes intelligent, he takes to Nivartante Marg, the path of liberation, and thus instead of rotating within this material world, he returns home back to Godhead. This is necessary. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurintayjmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Banchakapatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Beva Japatidanam Bhavani Bhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, by your kindness, I'll try to say a few words. O great sage Sukadeva Goswami, unless the living entity is freed from the infection of the material modes of nature, he receives different bodies different types of bodies in which to enjoy or suffer, and according to the body he is understood to have various inclinations. By following these inclinations he traverses the path called pravritti marg, by which one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, as you have already described in the third canto. So in the beginning of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that we can go to different destinations according to our interest or inclinations, according to the modes of material nature. What is that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Sadasad, Yoni Janmasu. How does that begin? Punkte Pratik Jangunan. So it's saying, according to our association with the modes of material nature, we meet with good and bad in various species of life. So according to the modes we cultivate, we'll live a particular lifestyle. You know, Prabhupada says here that those who have no knowledge about the spiritual world, they're stuck in the material world. They just don't know anything better. This is a question of knowledge and expanding our knowledge and understanding of something beyond this life. And it's a symptom of uneducated people that this life is everything. In fact, what is it? Understanding in the mode of goodness, or knowledge in the mode of ignorance, in the Gita, Krishna says, it's just one's work. One's working very hard, and there's really nothing more than this. You get a job, you work really hard, enjoy your senses, watch TV, just nothing. There's really nothing beyond the toil in this material world. There's just nothing beyond that. That's a mode of ignorance. So, according to the modes of material nature, and whatever mode you're in, goodness, passion, ignorance, or the combination thereof, still the thing is pravritti marg. It's we're all Prabhupada uses the word rotating and wandering in this purport. So rotating means going around, and just like the sun or the moon, the planets, they just keep rotating. They haven't stopped since I've been around, and I haven't heard it anywhere in any history book that they've stopped. They just keep rotating, being forced by, you could say, gravity, or just the arrangement of Seshanag, and there's a certain energy there just forcing them to just keep going around. In fact, it says in the Brahma Samhita that the sun, the king of all planets, Brahmanda Brahmite, no, that's not what I'm thinking of. Yeah, then there's the last line there is Brahmati. Yes, Gaya, Brahmati. So in other words, by Krishna's arrangement, the sun is forced to keep going. It's not going to stop. And that's why you can people actually set their clocks to it, right? It's the movement of the sun. It's so exact. And those orbits and that rotation is set by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So rotating means you just keep going around and around and around and around and around and around. When are you going to get off? Right? Just like children go and they go on a Ferris wheel or fair merry-go-round, things like that. Just keep going around and around and around. When are you going to get off? So the word rotation is here, and the word wandering. Wandering means you don't really have a purpose. You're just wandering around. This body, that body, heavenly planets, just wandering. And the reason we keep rotating and the reason we keep wandering is because we don't find an ultimate goal or happiness or shelter. We just keep looking. We just keep looking, keep rotating. Sometimes up, sometimes down. So in this first verse in the Gita, Yanti Deva Prata Devan, because it's explaining those who worship the Devatas, they can go up to the Devatas. Prittin means the forefathers. You can go to Pitri Loka. If you like hanging out with ghosts and spirits, you can do that also. But Krishna says, Yanti ma jajinopi mam, that if you worship me, you'll come to me. There's a mistaken idea that doesn't matter what you do, we all land up in the same place, right? It's ridiculous. That's not true at all. It's not there in the Bhagavad Gita. I was doing a puja the other day, and I asked the lady of the house, I said, do you have your own murti of Ganapati and Lakshmi? And she goes, yes. And she says, I have a few other, deities and so on, like to place on the altar at the same time. I said, that's fine. She goes, ultimately, because they're all the same. I said, no, that's not true. I said, we're all the same family, but we're not the same. You know, it's just kind of like, didn't want to get a big argument right before the puja, but I just wanted to point that out. You know, they're all the same. Doesn't matter if you worship Durga or Vishnu or Shiva or Ganesh or this or that. It's all the same. They're all many faces of the Supreme. That's what they're, you know. God bless that personality who appeared in Bengal some years ago. RK, right? So, yatamat tatapat. As many people, as many philosophies. So that's right there. It's exactly the opposite of what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, sometimes people ask you, what do you think of Ramakrishna? What do you think of Vivekananda? What do you think? And I always tell them, I like all the parts that agree with the Bhagavad Gita, but the ones that don't agree with the Bhagavad Gita, I just can't accept. So, because everyone's supposed to accept the Bhagavad Gita. You know, if they want to get into it, then we start getting into it. But just like that, the ones what they say the agrees with the Bhagavad Gita, I like that. The other ones, I don't like them at all. They're just that. So people have different destinations, and there's various inclinations according to the modes of material nature. And we have a particular body that we've constructed in the past, you could say, by our previous activities. Some people are born very much in the mode of ignorance, very much passion and goodness and so on. And those things can be constantly changing according to our sangha. Sadasad, yoni janmasu. By association, these things change. So a take home on this one, or take ashram, you want to call it that, is to be very careful the modes of material nature that we cultivate, because we're coming from a very, very low stock. It's already there, like that expression is, it's in your blood, like that. You know, through our bodies, the blood of mlechas, yavanas is like running very thick. That's our upbringing. So that means our conditioning running, you know, that's what it means. Our conditioning is there. It's like one devotee said something about falling down, and Prabhupada said, you're already fallen. What's the question of falling down? You're already fallen. So we're starting from a very, very low position, very low modes of nature, so we have to be very, very, very careful, because according to the modes, we are pushed. There's a rotation, just like the planets are pushed to be in a particular those are rotating ignorance, those are rotating in passion, and those are rotating in goodness. So we're pushed by a stronger power. Maya is very strong. How strong is Maya? What is that? Verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya. Duratya means it's insurmountable. Can you name something that's insurmountable? Mount Everest? Pretty much. Well, I say it isn't actually. People do. I mean, it's maybe for us. But insurmountable, there's just no way of. How about the goal in your life, Dimitri, of becoming a multimillionaire? Do you think that's insurmountable at this stage in your life? No? How about a billionaire? You think you could do it? Really? He's got connections with the Russian mafia. That's what it is. No, I think it's. Not out of place to say it's insurmountable. Anyone in this room to become a multimillionaire in this lifetime. Even you think, well, because you know, they asked Americans years ago, there was a poll, the two plans they have for becoming rich, you know what they said? And sue. That's their big plan. So that's the average Joe on the street. Oh yeah, I'll just sue someone, I'll get rich, right? Or I'll win the lottery. Well, the chances of winning the lottery are, you know, this one person did a calculation. He said that, I don't know all the numbers, but he said the chances of winning the lottery, he gave some number like, let's say 100,001, or a few million and one, okay? And he said if you take North America and South America, the population, and how many households that is, that equals maybe like how many houses there are all the way throughout Canada, North America, Central America, and South America. And someone tells you there's $500 million in one of those homes. Can you guess which one it is? Yeah, I mean, what are the chances of you getting that right? I mean, it's impossible. So insurmountable means it's not going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But Krishna says, for one who surrenders unto me, that which is insurmountable, one who easily overcomes. Because Maya is Krishna's energy. So that's the trick. That's why the yogis have such a difficult time. They're trying to surmount Maya, or those engaged in karma kanda, those yogis, the jnanis, all those different personalities who are trying to control or transcend the material nature. They can't do it, but the devotees can. The devotees can. Ultimately, all of them fail. The karmi fails because sooner or later, we're talking about those who are strictly following the Vedic injunctions about being elevated to heavenly planets. Sooner or later, they goof up. Or even if they go to heaven, what happens after their piety runs out? Shine punya machalam bishanti, right? Machalokam, they come back down. It runs out. And they got to do it all over again. The rotation starts again, and maybe they won't be so inclined, right? And the yogis and the jnanis, but the devotees, they can surmount it because they're not depending upon themselves. They're depending upon Krishna. So it is probably give the example about how the monkey carries its child and how the cat carries its kitten. You know these two examples? Which is better? Yes, because it's completely dependent on mother. Mother just picks it up and carries it, whereas a monkey is holding on for dear life, hanging on to the back of its mother while she's jumping through the trees, right? Just hanging on. So devotees are like the cat, the kitten. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he quotes this verse about Brahmanda Brahmitan Konya Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Pashai Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. That's our situation. And that's what we said earlier about expanding our vision. It's all, wow, it's amazing when you first hear about these things, because everyone, 99% of the population are thinking this life is everything. It's everything. That's all it is. And some people think about heaven, but it seems to be just a continuation of this life, because they're thinking they're going in the self-same body, right? That's so, Western theology, they bury the body and this and that, and then Gabriel blows his horn, you just kind of pop out of the grave and go back, you just continue your life. It's very interesting, very strange. But,
But my education debt isn't paid off.
So to hear that, no, you've been around for many, many lifetimes. And there are all kinds of varieties of living entities and places you can go, and there's a spiritual world, and we've been wandering in this material world a long time. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, a long time meant, we read in the history books maybe a few thousand years ago. There was the Greek civilization or the Roman civilization or this or that, but now we're hearing that millions and billions of years in previous kalpas, and just like I was explaining to someone the other day at a puja, we do the sankalpa in the beginning, Om Tat Sat, so you go back. And you start out with very, very, and I was just saying, when you say to someone, where do you live? Where do you live? Can you give a little more specific than that? 1030 Grand Avenue, that's where you are, San Diego. You can expand on that. You can say California. You can expand on that. You can say United States of America. You can say planet Earth. And then you keep going, Jambudweep and this and that. So I was explaining in the Sankalpa, because the Vedas explain such a great dimension of reality, in that Sankalpa we're talking about geographical locations, what side of the universe we're on. And that Brahma, half of Brahma's day, it starts with that. We're in the second half of Lord Brahma's lifetime, and talks about what manvantara we're in, all these different things, because we're very, very, very inclusive to all those varieties of living entities in this universe. Human beings, they just talk about a little tiny thing, what's going on, this planet of Earth. Our time today is what day? 13th, right? It's 13th. September 2022, just, But how about when you start talking, then you got a century. We're in a different century. And then you have these, you start thinking beyond that. We don't talk about that in our day-to-day life, what manvantar we're in, what yuga we're in, and this and that, right? We're in the 28th yuga cycle. Did you know that? Does that keep you up at night? We're in the 28th yuga cycle, what manvantar we're in. But when you do a sankalpa, you state all these things and opens our eyes to the fact that there's a whole expansive reality there. And we're just in a little, as human beings, we're just concerned about this little, the day, the month, maybe the year or something like that. That's it. Very, very tiny. Prabhupada said, what, spot existence? He said, use that expression. Point, spot. I think he said spot, right? Like a period, just like a little dot. It's so tiny. Human form of life is just so insignificant. Sometimes the example is given that Ravana, he did not ask for a benediction that he wouldn't be killed by human beings because they're so insignificant. I mean, just like, do you think you're going to be killed by an ant? Some ants can just come and whack you? No, it's like, we wouldn't even think about it. We wouldn't even think about it. So that's why he didn't ask for that blessing, human beings. Insignificant. Jayapataka Maharaj said in one lecture, he said he didn't ask for a benediction because he had human beings for breakfast. So who's concerned about, what you eat for breakfast killing you? There's a Rakshasa. So we're very, very tiny. So our exposure to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all the Vedic literatures that open our eyes to what's really happening, and that we've been Brahmanda Brahmite, that means wandering around this universe a long, long, long time, sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes heavenly existence, sometimes hellish existence, so many different species of life, and we just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And that's why at the beginning of the verse it says here, unless one's able to give this up, it's just going to keep going on and on and on and on and on, as it has been since time immemorial. So by the Guru Krishna Prasad, the mercy of the spiritual master, he gives the seed of this Bhakti Lata Bij. He gives the seed. That seed can be cultivated very nicely. I mean, there's a beautiful, wonderful long purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about this. The cultivation of the Bhakti Lata Bij, the creeper of devotional service. Then there's a chance one becomes intelligent and starts on the path of Nivritti Marg, the path of liberation. Prabhupada says here, one starts seeing or making up their mind. Where is that? One concludes that in this material world there is nothing but repeated birth and death, and he tries to return home back to God. And you guys are so pessimistic. Nothing but birth and death. Look at all the wonderful things in this world, right? Yes, but all the wonderful things are in between birth and death. It begins and it's going to end. And then we suffer. All those wonderful things are taken away from us, right? If I told you, I put it, just to have expiration dates on food. Imagine there's an expiration date on everything. You marry someone and she has a tattoo, expiration date, when the marriage is going to be over. Either she leaves you or dies or something like that, right? Your car is going to expiration. Everything has an expiration date. It's stamped on it already. Your kurta, when it's going to run out. In other words, somehow or other, there's an expiration. Big building here, San Diego. San Diego's going to expire one day. It won't even be here. It won't be here. Everything's going to expire. So it's quite, we should think about that. Everything has an expiration date in the material world, including our own body, our own minds, and this and that. So one becomes, what is it? A very nice expression by, what's his name? Chaitanya Charan. He says, the Bhagavad Gita does not give us another world view. It gives us a view of another world. It's not he says, it's not just another world view. It's a view of another world. So that's the point. It's not like, that's all? If you're left with that, what is that called? Existentialism? The material world is just, they come to the conclusion it's all miserable. Then the question is, what, should I kill myself or not? because it's just all miserable. There's nothing beyond it, and they see the futility of material existence. It's not a no-brainer. So many people are very depressed because of the material world, and they have no alternative. So that's the point. Is the alternative is so much nicer. So we have to cultivate that remembrance and nivritti marg to revive our divine consciousness. It's covered by so many lifetimes of just rotating and wandering. It's after a while you forget, let alone millions and millions of lifetimes. It's a lot of conditioning, So, but Krishna says, "Mam aviye prapajante mam etam taranti te." That's the last part of that verse. It's insurmountable, but you just surrender to me, and then you can easily cross beyond it. That's another verse there in the 18th chapter. Mat prasada tarishyasi. Was that some of Sarva Durgani? Mat prasada tarishyasi. It's right there near the end of the 18th chapter. It said all the difficulties, Durgani means all the difficulties of this material world, Mat prasada tarishyasi. By my mercy and kindness, you just cross right over it. He doesn't say he gets rid of it. He says you cross over it. But yes, that's the last part of it. There's So we can end here. There must be a few criticisms of my class or comments. Or
Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu.
There are questions on Zoom.
We will address those as we ask for questions from our non-Zoom audience.
Of course, Prabhu, we can wait.
Because you always have the best questions, so we'll save the best for last. How's that?
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you very much. You're very kind.
You mentioned the lottery. I think this was before you came. And how so many people hope that they can win the lottery, but it's such a long shot. What's really ironic is that they've done a study, and the people who win the lottery are often less happy than just ordinary persons who just work every day, because suddenly you have all these people come out of the woodwork. Uncle Joel, you never heard. You have $2 million. Usually it's not 100 million, whatever it is, and you have to deal with all of that, and your whole lifestyle is shook up. So most people. And the ironic thing is they recently had a lottery ticket for $1,400,000,000, and he hasn't claimed it. He or she has not claimed it. Whoever, they know where it was bought. They know the number, of course. But and they only have 2 weeks left. It'll expire. So someone maybe has gotten cold feet. They bought the lottery ticket, or maybe they lost it, and then they just jumped off a cliff or something. But it's even that. In other words, it's fool's gold. You may win, and it's a perfect metaphor for material life. You aspire, and you get it, and then it's not what you expected, and of course, as you mentioned, it always expires. And so your hopes, it's, what is it, Prahlad say? Natevudu svarkatiman durashaya bahirartamanina. Prabhupada says, a hope against hope, durashaya. That's the material, thing. And then you commit all kind of sins, you end up in the hellish planets, So this is all introduction to how we can be delivered from that by the holy name.
The different classes of people, they consider different things to be their source of happiness.
Yeah.
Just like with the Brahmins, it's what's the wealth of the Brahmins? Austerity. Like that, and knowledge and things like that. There's so much happiness. Or just for devotees, it's devotional service. That's everything to them. That's their currency of ananda or bliss. So the Brahmins have theirs. The Kshatriyas, it's power. It's sweeter than anything else. The power to control and manipulate others. And you start wars and you augment. It's just power. Vaishyas is money. Money. And then Sudras, who knows? But maybe it was a class I gave recently. Probably was talking about the Sudras get money. They get money and they just create all kinds of problems. So it's an illusion that money is some kind of is the real thing for finding happiness. It's not. And therefore Vaishyas and Sudras and lower classes, they're taught that, and they try so hard, whether it's winning the lottery or just working hard and getting a good education. You can say the standard way of becoming well-to-do, but happiness is always illusory for them. It's just not there. They get very frustrated, and they spend their whole life working very, very hard. It's just not there, because it's not a question of, well, you have your happiness, and I have mine. People say that, right? This is your thing, and I have my thing. Well, we're talking about something a little more, quite a lot more real. It's not true that, whatever makes you happy, fine. Whatever makes me happy, fine. That's not true. Just like if you want to eat unhealthy food all day long, that's fine. You're a horrible example for that. If you want to eat and he wants to eat healthy food all day long, right? That's just fine. It's not. One of you are going to get sick, right? Because there's a greater reality than your choice and my choice, right? There's a greater reality. So, and the thing is, money also, they say money just makes you more of who you are. You ever hear that expression? Yeah, it just makes you more of who you are. So if you're a very nice person, you get wealthy, you can do all kinds. You'll actually be inclined to do all kinds of wonderful things. But if you're just a fool or a nasty person, you get money. It's just it's some horrible things that happen because it just makes you more of what you are. It just amplifies it. It amplifies it. So it's an interesting to consider. That's why the Vedic philosophy is you should work hard and get what you need. But when you start going beyond what you need, then all kinds of problems start happening. They start happening. Any other questions or comments in this arena?
Yeah, you're mentioning how it's accepted idea, at least amongst some, that the body dies, and then you're there in the grave, and then Jesus comes back, and there's a whole. Now, much of this, it seems to be quite like a speculation. I guess maybe you could say maybe the Christian acharyas or something, they had some revelations or something. But you know what they explain in relation to that? Because, where does it state that in the Bible? You go into the grave and then you come back, and I don't think it doesn't seem that it clearly states that. Those things. Also about there's this whole thing. Okay, you accept Jesus or you go to hell. Jesus himself never said that. Oh, accept me or go to hell or burn. There's all this kind of speculative. Maybe it's just interpretations of the leaders, I guess, or.
Yeah, all that's true. There's no bona fide succession.
Is it Jehovah's Witnesses who thinks that everyone's going to come out of the grave and be up?
No, that's very.
At the moment.
Yeah, that's why they have graveyards.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're waiting in limbo. It's like a big waiting room somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing there. I hope they have good snacks. But you're waiting there, and then at the day of judgment, if you're good, you come out and you go to heaven.
But where's the one where you have your family when you go back?
Oh yeah, that's it. Everyone reunites.
A lot of
Yeah.
people, a lot
Right.
of groups think that Mormon.
The Mormons.
Oh yeah.
Jehovah's Witness kind of have
Yeah, it's the human condition, as I was explaining that article I read, some Dandavats or something about some professor about Christianity being difficult to accept reincarnation, and there's some very fundamental part of Christianity is the human being. Is the divine being, and it's a combination of this body and spirit, and that's why animals just don't have a soul. They're not human beings. It's the human being, and that's a divine creation, and that's the whole thing. And the idea that we're a soul inside and we could be in another form of life, and no.
all like one, right? The soul.
Yeah, it's And they can't answer a lot of questions, but they're sticking to it, sticking to their guns. Like that. Are we ready for questions on Zoom?
Yes, we are.
Okay, Prabhu.
The first devotee to go is Justin B. Prabhu. Please, Justin B. Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. The verse says that different bodies have different inclinations. Is it the correct idea that there's desires of the body and desires of the soul?
There's the desires of the soul, which are karmatmaka, Bhagavatam says. They're colored. And they're colored by the modes of material nature. In other words, what we really, really want, we can't perceive right now because we're covered by the modes of material nature. So as the consciousness becomes covered by modes of material nature, the desires become, what's the word, skewed. They're different. It's just like light coming from the chandelier. Because these chandeliers haven't been cleaned in a few years, you'll see that it looks like they're frosted glass, but they're not. There's actually clear glass, but it looks like frosted glass or dusted glass. The light is different because of the color of the glass. So in the same way, the desire of the soul is only to serve Krishna. But in touch with matter, that desire is just like colored glass or something. It comes out in a different form. Perverted reflection, the desire to enjoy in the material world. I am the enjoyer, I am not the servant. So that's what the inclinations is referring to, is that the modes of material nature, according to the modes of material nature, those desires come through, the consciousness comes through, and it's no longer pure, it's colored by the modes. So that's why one has to become free from the modes of material nature. So that's where we're getting our inclinations associating with the modes, and that affects our consciousness like that. I say, oh, my body's very tired. The body's always the same. The tiredness is coming from the consciousness is feeling something. We're weighted down because we don't get enough sleep or this or that, but the body is no different when it's tired or energetic, in the sense that it's not creating those feelings. The soul, or perceiving those or whatever, it's the soul. And for some reason or other, because what's going on, we're in ignorance or something, we're influenced by ignorance, we feel very tired and sleepy. Does anyone ever feel that way during class? Right? So, or you may feel very, very energetic. You're inspired by passion, or you could be really inspired by goodness and just so light and happy. It says all the senses are illuminated by knowledge, one of the mode of goodness. You just feel very in tune and awake. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Dharmasetu Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat pranams. Prabhu, you know better than me that in order for me to avoid becoming infected by COVID or any other virus, I need to take the required measures, like, for example, the mask and social distance, etc. So, based on this, my question is, what are the required measures that I need to take and use in order to avoid becoming infected by the material modes of nature?
That's another class, but I'll tell you two things.
Please.
Serving the Vaishnavas. I'll tell you three things. Serving the Vaishnavas, taking shelter of the holy names, and being very merciful to the conditioned souls. Those three things Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prescribed. How's that for an answer? Is that okay? Will that keep you busy till tomorrow's class?
Better than okay. Outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we should end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.